Hello, this is Chef John from foodwishes.com with Cacio Pepe Taralli. That's right, I'm going to show you my first ever attempt at making taralli, which in Italian translates to mini bagel cracker pretzel. Or at least that's what I assume. I didn't actually look it up. But anyway, that's what these basically are. And apparently there's hundreds of different versions of these, both sweet and savory. And what you're about to see here is me trying to make a pepper and cheese taralli. So with that, let's go ahead and get started by making a very, very simple dough, which will include some all-purpose flour, some salt, and a whole bunch of freshly ground black pepper. And then what we'll do is take a spoon and give this a quick mix before adding our wet ingredients. And there's only two. We're going to drizzle in some extra virgin olive oil, plus, believe it or not, some white wine. And yes, it is very, very rare we do a dough where we don't use any water. But I really do think it's the use of wine here that gives these such a unique texture and taste. And then what we'll do once all that's in there is take our spoon and give this a mix until it all comes together, at which point we can go ahead and switch to our hand and finish this off by giving it a couple minutes of kneading. Oh, and by the way, speaking of taste, if you were going to flavor these with something besides black pepper, like maybe chili flakes or fennel seed, you'd want to add that stuff in at this step. So please feel free to flavor these any way you want. I mean, you are, after all, the Svengali of your taralli. And you are the one in control. Complete control. But anyway, like I said, we'll give that a mix with the spoon and then switch to our hand. And we're going to want to knead this for about 3 or 4 minutes, or until we have a beautifully smooth and relatively soft ball of dough. And of course, while we're kneading, if it seems kind of wet and loose, we can always add a little more flour. But this one was feeling pretty good. And thanks to all the olive oil in this, felt really supple, and really was a pleasure to knead. And then what we'll do once we do have a nice smooth and soft ball of dough is go ahead and wrap it in plastic, and we will let it sit out at room temp for at least 30 minutes. All right, longer is probably okay, but at least 30 minutes, please. And during that 30 minutes, our flour is going to have a chance to hydrate, as well as other things are going to happen that science still doesn't fully understand. And then what we'll do after we've given our dough a chance to rest is go ahead and unwrap it, and we will divide that into quarters. And then what we'll attempt to do here with each of those pieces of dough is to roll it out using the flats of our hands into a rope about 10 to 12 inches long. And as I mentioned when we were kneading this, thanks to the oil in this, it is really not that sticky at all, which is why you don't see me sprinkling any flour down. So if you're brand new to working with dough, this is kind of a nice one, since it really is quite easy to work with. So we'll go ahead and roll that dough out into 4 ropes as shown, which I believe Muhammad Ali referred to as the old rope-a-dough. And then what we'll do is take our bench scraper, or dull knife, and divide each of these ropes into 3 equal pieces, giving us 12 altogether. I know, thank you, Mr. Math. And then once all these are portioned, we'll go ahead and roll those out one more time to maybe like 5 or 6 inches long, at which point we're going to give them a little twist and then form them into a ring, making sure we're sealing both of the ends together the best we can. Which, because this dough is oily, is not the easiest thing to do. So I really tried to make sure I was twisting and smearing and smashing those ends together. And by the way, I don't think that twisting is traditional. It's just something I thought would be good to do, as I was thinking it might give these a little more of a flaky texture, which might have actually worked. Although apparently once baked, these are supposed to have smooth, shiny surfaces. But since I was planning on grating cheese all over these things, I didn't think it would matter. But anyway, I went ahead and rolled, twisted, and ringed the rest of that dough up. Oh, and if you do decide to twist, don't do it too much. All right, I think I over-twisted this last one, which thanks to our old friend gluten, made it not want to stay in a ring shape. But that's fine. Mostly because I didn't care that much how these came out looking, which is a very, very enjoyable way to cook. And then what we'll do at this point is transfer these 4 or 5 at a time into some boiling water. Oh, by the way, I did add a big pinch of salt to the water, since that just seemed like something I should do. And as soon as you place these in, they're going to sink right to the bottom. And just to be safe, because I was using such a shallow pan, I used a spatula to make sure these weren't sticking, which they weren't. And all we need to do here is just cook these for a couple minutes, or until they float to the surface. And as that was happening, I could see I was having a few issues. All right, one was kind of losing its ring shape, and another one had a severe protrusion. And as you can see, one pulled apart completely, which was unfortunate. But as you know, we never let the food win. And because the dough was still kind of soft and gummy, I was able to kind of stick those ends together. And then I moved on and went ahead and boiled the rest. To, as you can see, some mixed results. But I just kept telling myself, relax. These are getting covered with cheese, and you're going to tell people they're supposed to be rustic. And then speaking of cheese, while those drained on a paper towel for a minute, I went ahead and grated 12 Parmesan cheese landing pads on which to place my boiled rings of dough. And I did this because I wanted cheese under and on top. So after tossing them around in the cheese on the silpat, I went ahead and grated some more over the top. And in hindsight, this was kind of dumb, since I probably should have just grated the cheese on a small saucer and then coated each one individually and then transferred it onto the pan. Although if I had done that, once these were baked, I would not have been able to eat all those little crispy bits of cheese off the pan. So all's well that ends well. Oh, and I should mention, I'm using Parmigiano Reggiano, but for a little more authenticity, Cacio Pepe is usually made with Pecorino. But either is going to work great here. And then what we'll do once those have been severely Cacio'd is go ahead and transfer those into the center of a 400-degree oven for about 25 minutes, or until lightly golden and crunchy all the way through. Which, by the way, you're not going to be able to tell until they're all the way cooled, which is something we definitely have to wait for. Okay, you do not want to eat these hot or warm. They need to cool to become crunchy. And as I transfer those onto this rack, you can see that about half of them actually form this beautiful lacy wafer of cheese in the middle, which I think is very cool. Okay, you're going to get an even better look at that here. But anyway, we'll go ahead and let those cool completely before serving those up next to some nice cold Italian white wine. And you know what? For a first attempt, I thought these came out looking pretty good. All right, for something like this, if you want perfect rings, I'm estimating you'd have to make 2,000 to 3,000 before you get it down, which means I'm never going to get it down. And as far as the taste goes, these are very flavorful. All right, obviously because of the pepper and cheese, but also the acidity from the white wine sort of gives these a sourdough-like effect. So I found these to be very tasty and addictive. And not just addictive because of the taste, but also because of their very unique crispy, crunchy texture. All right, the very, very center is a little less crunchy than the outside, which really does make for a very, very interesting bite. Oh, and apparently some people like to dunk these in the wine, which I really can't do here. I either need a bigger glass or skinnier fingers. Although let me tip the glass so I can see how this is. And that was actually surprisingly enjoyable. All right, it was wet, but it was still crunchy and delicious. But anyway, that's it. My take on Taralli. All right, there's an old Italian saying that if you have enough time to make your own mini bagel cracker pretzels, you should probably have a few more kids, which kind of makes sense. But this is not the kind of thing you spend all day making alone. All right, call up some friends and family, tell them to bring over some white wine, and make a whole bunch of all kinds of different flavors. Okay, so with that in mind, I'll just finish by saying I really do hope you give these a try soon. So please follow the links below for the ingredient amounts, a printable written recipe, and much more info as usual. And as always, enjoy.